Today on HandyDadTV, I'm going to show you my brand new home network featuring the UniFi Dream Router. I'm going to show you all the VLANs that I set up, my Wi-Fi networks, all the devices that I purchased, and this was all purchased by myself. It was not sponsored. This is completely unbiased, so let's get to it. Welcome to HandyDadTV. I'm Chris Heider, your virtual dad in the cloud. And today I'm going to show you my new UniFi network. And it's all centered around this little baby. It's called the UniFi Dream Router, which sells for $199. Now, the UniFi Dream Router is an all-in-one device that connects up to your cable modem and provides internet access to the rest of your house. It has not only Wi-Fi 6, but it also has a 4-port switch built into it. And 2 of these are power over Ethernet. And why is that important? Well, because if you want to add any access points to improve wireless access in your house, you can add things like this that have no power connections. They just get power over Ethernet. And this little baby can power them. I gotta say, this is hard to get. In fact, all UniFi equipment is kind of hard to get right now. They have supply shortages, and this was out of stock for the longest time. But I just happened to keep going back to the website, and I found one and I bought it, and I gotta tell you, I loved it from the moment that I set it up. Now, the UDR by itself is a Wi-Fi access point. In fact, it's a Wi-Fi 6 access point. But it wasn't enough for my entire house, so I added 2 more. I added this round one. This is a U6 Lite. It is a Wi-Fi 6 access point, and this is an in-wall HD. This one, I couldn't get the Wi-Fi 6 version of it. It just was out of stock, so I switched to just this one because I needed it, and I can always upgrade later, but this one is fine for now. And the beauty of this one is that it connects to an Ethernet jack in the back. It is powered over Ethernet, so the UDR can power it, but it has a 4-port switch on the bottom of it built in, so you can plug other things into this. This is perfect for like a bedroom or an office, a home office where you've got other devices that you want to plug in, wired devices. So these things are really pretty cool. And then, of course, in addition to my wireless stuff, I have wired Ethernet throughout my house. So there's 2 of the mini switches. These were only $29 each. And then this is an 8-port switch. This one goes for $109. All right, so when I go to 10.0.0.1, which is my router's address, then you see this is the default. It shows you the topology, which is all of the UniFi devices that are connected to my network. And you can also see the applications that I have installed here. The only one I have installed is network, but there are 4 applications that you can choose 2 of to run on the UDR. So this is my Dream Router here, and I've got 3 switches connected to the Dream Router, and I've got 2 access points elsewhere in the house. I'll get into that in a second. I'm just going to go into network to begin with. When I go into network, this is the dashboard that shows up, which is it's pretty. It's very attractive. To me, it's not all that. Not like I sit here and look at it like it's a network control center, but it gives good demo. And it has something that you'll see a number of places called Wi-Fi experience, and it says it's 97% right now. I don't know what that means. I guess maybe it measures how many packets are lost or something like that, or how many retries. I don't know. It also shows, this is, I think, the last 24 hours, my download utilization and upload utilization. You could tell I uploaded a video yesterday, so that's why it peaked out at 100% of my upload capacity. Now, as far as download is concerned, you can see we have 300 megabit is my ISP download setting, and that's what I pay for anyway. And I rarely ever go over half of that, ever, even watching 4K movies on multiple TVs. So if you're paying for gigabit internet, I don't know if it's worth it, honestly. So 300 meg is all I need, and I have 3 people in my house. Now, when I'm in network and I click on topology, this will show a display of everything in my network. So if I expand it to include Wi-Fi devices, you'll begin to see, it does get a little bit busier, and you can zoom in and you can navigate all around if you want to. And this is the list of all my UniFi devices. You can see the UDR is here. That's my 10.0.0.1 address. And this is the client list of all the clients that are on my network. These are just some traffic overview and some Wi-Fi stats if you want to look into these things too. If you're troubleshooting something, this might be helpful, but for the most part, it's not that important to me. Wi-Fi scan is really good. This shows you the channels that are being used within your range, and it tells you basically if you wanted to optimize your network, if you were having trouble, you can figure out where to choose the best channels. Now you can see the houses in my neighborhood are pretty darn close together, and so there's quite a bit of network traffic. So that's certainly in competition for bandwidth. Now, if I go into the settings here, I'm going to start with networks, and I'm going to describe the 3 networks that I have in my house. By default, the one that you get all the time is what I would call the trusted network. In fact, that's what I named it. So that's for my computers, my personal devices, my phones, tablets, things like that. And then I have an untrusted network, which is where I put all of my IoT devices, which is Internet of Things. In other words, devices that are just talking to the internet and don't really need to talk to anything else in my house. I'll put those on the untrusted network. And then, of course, I have a guest network for anybody that does come into my house that wants to get internet access. I put them on the guest network. So you might say, well, how is guest different than untrusted? Well, the guest network, the devices are actually isolated. They can only get to the internet. They can't even see other devices on the guest network. But the untrusted network is a network. It is a LAN that devices can talk to one another if they need to for some reason, and they have internet access. The trusted network can get to devices on the untrusted network, but not the other way around. And that's important for the security aspect of my network, is that I have my trusted devices, my computers and whatnot, are separated from the cheap devices that just come with internet access, whether it be a camera or a Wi-Fi switch or something like that. All those devices would go into untrusted. Now for Wi-Fi, you can see I have my guest network here. I called it Be Our Guest, and I don't have any clients on that right now. For our trusted network, I called it Europa, which, in case you're wondering, is a moon around Jupiter. That's how I picked that name. Anyway, that's the trusted network. So if anybody connects to that Wi-Fi, they automatically get on the trusted network. And then I have a Europa IoT network here. This is a Wi-Fi network that maps to untrusted, and that is broadcast from the office access point only. So that one, if I'm close to the UDR in my office, that's what will connect to the IoT network there. Now for my other 2 access points, I have specific Wi-Fi names being broadcast from them. So that way I can target specific devices to those physical access points, because they're not going to move. Now for firewall and security, this is really what you're paying for when you buy UniFi. So you can actually provide country restrictions if you want to. I don't have them on right now. You can also do threat management. You can leave it off, you can just detect threats, or you can detect and block. I have it set to detect and block, and for system sensitivity, I have it on high, which means all of 11 threat categories are enabled. You can also do it custom if you want to, but I have it all turned on. Now, there is a warning here that says enable threat management may reduce maximum throughput speeds. Well, with my 300 megabit bandwidth, I actually did a test, and I don't see any degradation. So I guess the CPU inside the UDR is fast enough to keep up with my bandwidth. If you have gigabit internet and you turn on high threat management, you'd have to do your own test. That might reduce it to maybe 700 megabit bandwidth. So I don't know if it'll be fast enough to keep up with really high throughput. But with me, 300 megabit, it's fine. I have no problem with it. I saw no difference, so I left it on. Now, the firewall rules, this is where things get a little bit techie, and this could be a little bit beyond the understanding of most home users. I do have an IT background, but I've really never managed a firewall, so it's not that hard to do. And most of the things that you get here from UniFi, most of these rules are installed by default. In fact, you can see all the ones that are black are the ones that they installed by default. This blue one is one that I can actually adjust here. And I'll talk about each one of these, but they are broken up into various different groups. So the internet group, the LAN group, your guest network, these are all by default, you can see. And then there's Internet v6 and LAN v6. I didn't do anything in those, or guest v6. So really the majority of the ones that I created are here, and it's just 4 rules here and 1 under internet. So let's talk about the one under the internet now. This one, you can see I call block internet to no internet group. So what does that mean? Well, I have at least one device in my house that I don't want to get to the internet, and it is my Insteon hub. And it's a long story of why I did that, but I want it to just work inside my network, and it doesn't need internet access. So I put it into a group called No Internet Group. In fact, you can see I selected it here, No Internet Group. And all I do here is I say reject all traffic between that is the source is no internet group. So that would be right now it would be just my hub, and then the destination would be any through the WAN. Okay, now remember this is an internet out. So it blocks all access to the internet. This is how I do it. There may be other ways. I'm sure there's multiple ways to do this, but this is the way that I did it. And if I go into profiles here, you can see, if I get to this group here, no internet group, this is the specific internet address, and it's a fixed internet address, the IP address of my hub, my Insteon hub. And so that's the no internet group. If I wanted to block internet for any other devices, I would just add those IP addresses to this no internet group. So that's the only rule that I have here for the internet access. That's the only thing I'm blocking myself. And then the LAN, I have a few rules. Now, by default, it enables traffic across everything. So you can create as many VLANs as you want on your network. And by default, everything can talk to everything, and everything can find everything. So ultimately, what I want to do is, this was the rule that I used to drop untrusted access to the trusted network. And the way that I did that is its type is LAN in. I'm dropping untrusted access to the trusted network. That's the description. This is before predefined rules. And here I say the action is going to be drop. And the difference between reject and drop is reject actually sends a block response to the device that sends it. Drop means it just times out. It just, the packet goes into the bit bucket and it never gets a response. So here you can see the source is my untrusted network and the destination is my trusted network. And that's it. So this is the meat of stopping traffic from my untrusted network to the trusted network. And that's it. It's really simple. So before I entered that one in, I needed to put rules above it that accepted certain types of traffic. So for example, this one here allows all established and related sessions. I'm going to put links to some videos that I watched on how to set up a UniFi network, and a lot of these ideas came from those. So if you look in the video description, I'll put links to other ones, but I think this one came from the hookup. It just basically says accept all from local addresses to all local addresses. And that's it. That's all. It just says right here, match state and established and match state related. The other one is to allow NTP port. NTP is for the time protocol, network time protocol, I believe it is. So you can see allow, it says accept from all local addresses anything on the NTP port. So it allows it to get anywhere. Now I'll go over to profiles real quick and let's look at all local addresses. Now, all local addresses, for me, I set it as 10.0.0.0/16. 10.0.anything is basically what this matches to. And then you can see I have the NTP port defined here, which is port 123. And so it makes sense to do this as a group because it's more self-documenting rather than just put that in the rule itself. So that's why I do it like that. All right, going back over here, the only other thing I allow is I allow Plex to the NAS. So from anywhere, all of my local addresses, I will accept, this is LAN in, accept from all local addresses. So anybody on my intranet can talk on the Plex port to my NAS server. And now my NAS server is on the trusted side, right? But my TVs and my Fire Sticks are on the untrusted side. So that's why I need to put this rule in. It fires these rules in order, so the Plex traffic will be allowed before it gets to the next rule that says drop everything. Okay? So that's basically the way you want to do it, is you want to put the allows before the drop. So if I come back over to my profiles, now in my profile you can see here I also have this Plex port 32400 is the Plex port. And if Plex needs to talk on other ports, I could certainly add them in here in that group as well. There is one more group I created here called Chromecast ports, but I don't really use Chromecast in my house. So I created the group just so that I had them documented, but I really don't have any rules that allow traffic for that. If I need to, I can add it at some point, but other than that, you can see this is everything I have defined here in my ports and IP groups. Now, the other thing on this page under Firewall and Security is port forwarding. So the only thing I have port forwarding set up for in my house is the Plex port. If I connect from the outside, the internet, basically, to my cable modem's address, my public IP address on port 32400, it will forward that traffic to my NAS, that's my NAS address, and the same port, 32400. And that needs to be enabled for me to use Plex.TV from outside of my network. Now, I also have the honeypot enabled, which is it detects malware, worms, and other types of malicious traffic attempting to scan my network for vulnerabilities, so I definitely enabled that. Other than that, I left pretty much everything else the default. All right, here you can see under UniFi devices, when I change it to display, you can see that the UDR is Wi-Fi 6, and my garage access point is Wi-Fi 6. But this great room access point is not, and that's because they were unavailable. So I took one that's Wi-Fi 5. I needed it, and so that's what I went with. And I could always upgrade it someday, but right now it doesn't seem to be a problem. Now let's talk about why I chose these devices and how I chose them. Now, when I come back to UniFi OS, which shows the overview of the UniFi devices in my house, I also have this other tab here called UniFi Floorplan. This is really cool because what it enabled me to do was import a diagram, a floor plan of my home, okay? And it allowed me to place where my devices are. And so this will give you a good overview of why I put things where I put them. So my office is down here. And in my office, I have two small switches. I have one of them that is connected right to the UDR, and I have one across the other side, which I call the cabinet switch. So I have this cabinet behind me that has my printer and my NAS and some other stuff in it. So this is the other side of the room. And so that's basically the majority of my equipment is in the office here. But my house was also pre-wired for Ethernet. And I was very fortunate to have a network connection center in the laundry room over here. And so what I did is I put a switch in the laundry room. That's an 8-port switch. I'll show it to you later. It is exactly where it needs to be, and it enables me to get internet, or Ethernet, I should say, to all of my rooms. It's also a PoE, Power over Ethernet device, which means it powers anything that I need power for. So any of my access points are powered by this switch. So it works really well. I don't need to keep power supplies in every one of these other locations. So I could effectively put access points in every room in my house and just power it from here. So how did I decide where did I need access points? Well, you can see this is the front door of my house. My house is very long, but pretty narrow. And the UDR is right here in the office. And if I hover over it, you can see where it gets Wi-Fi signal. And the Wi-Fi signal is pretty darn good from the UDR itself. But what you can see is there's some light spots, especially around the back of the house, which is where we sit on a patio. And I also have other devices Out the front of the house, I have a Ring doorbell, and I have a Wi-Fi light here and on both sides of the garage. And I would notoriously have trouble with the Wi-Fi signal going to that bulb on the other side of the garage. And I also have a Ring camera over the garage. And I also have on the side of the house, I have a generator that has Wi-Fi, and I have my Rachio sprinkler control that's out there. So when I just had this installed, the signal was weak over there, especially to this bulb. This bulb worked unreliably. So I was either going to have to come up with some other kind of solution or just bite the bullet. And for $99, I picked up this access point. This is I think it's a U6 Lite access point. I put that in the garage, and that enables these other devices to have better signal. So all I had to do was run a wire. There was no cable in the garage, so I just had to snake a wire through the wall from this cabinet out to the garage, and that solved that problem. And for the back of the house, I already had an Ethernet drop right here in the great room, and I had my TV hardwired, so there was also a very easy way to put an access point there. And what I did is I chose one of those in-wall access points because I could easily put it behind a piece of furniture. And that now provides much better signal, not only within the great room, but this is the master bedroom over here, as well as the patio out the back. So if I turn this on for all, you'll be able to see all of them. Now you can see the red zones are the hot spots. That's where you can really get to everything very well. But for the most part, anything that's red or orange, I get really good signal on. And it works really well at this point. So that's why I chose 3 access points for my house. And it's kind of triangular. So it works well. Now I do have an upstairs, but there's a bedroom upstairs that's kind of right over the office. So it connects to the UDR very well. And other than that, there's a loft up there too, and that connects to either one of these, any of these things. So it gets really good signal upstairs. I don't worry about that either. This is my office where the magic happens. And you can see I have my iMac and my work computer are here on my desk, and that's where the UDR is. And the UDR has 3 things plugged into it. The yellow cable goes to the laundry room. The black cable goes to this little switch here. The blue cable goes to the switch on the other side of the room. And the black one at the bottom is the WAN cable that goes to my cable modem right over here. And so that's where it stays. And I get really good signal. It's nice and centralized. You've got that little switch right there. You can see that is powered by the UDR because the UDR has 2 PoE ports on it. And so I don't have that plugged into anything, no power supply, nothing. And you can see I have my iMac plugged into it, and I have, any of the devices here on my desk are plugged into that. On the other side of the room is what I call the cabinet, and this is where the cabinet switch is. You can see I have a NAS underneath here, and I have my printer. And under there I also have a UPS for the NAS. Here's my little Ubiquiti switch right here. And I do have that one plugged into power just in case the UDR goes down. It doesn't take power down on this one. Not sure that it's needed, but it doesn't matter. They all come with a little power adapter if you need to use it. Now here in the laundry room is where my network connection is. This is my network access center where the house was pre-wired for cable and Ethernet. My incoming cable comes here. It splits. This one goes to the office, to the cable modem. This one goes down to another splitter and to 2 of the rooms that have cable boxes in them. And this is the Insteon hub that uses power line signals to communicate to devices in the house. So I just found that this was a really good location, kept it out of my office and away from all the electronics there. This is the 8-port Ubiquiti switch that really is the central heart of the house. This is where everything else is connected to. And this is powered. Of course, there's a power supply here because this has 4 PoE ports on it. And that's where my access points are connected to. Now, you see I have this labeled here. This is the great room access point. That one is behind the TV, and the white cable is the only one I had to add, and that one goes down the wall, comes out by the baseboard, and goes into the garage behind that wall. So the laundry room is right on the other side of this wall, and I ran this cable through, and it comes out and it powers that Wi-Fi access point there, and that provides access to pretty much everything else, the cars, the cameras, everything that's out here. My garage door opener, my LED Wi-Fi bulb, which is over in the corner of the garage over there, that gets signal from here. So it all works very well. Even the ratio and the generator on the other side of this wall, they all work really well. Now here is the great room that I was telling you about, and that's where I have this 82-inch TV. I have that hardwired because we watch 4K movies there, and why clog up your Wi-Fi if you don't have to? So there's already a wired cable drop behind that. This is the in-wall access point, and the cool thing about that is it has 4 ports on the bottom. So what I was able to do was not only power it as a Wi-Fi access point, but I also have that going up to the TV. And if I put any other kinds of boxes, if I wanted to put, whatever in here, an Xbox or any other kind of, who knows, Roku, you name it, anything I want to, I can plug in there as well. I've got 4 ports. Now back in here where my UniFi devices are, let me show you why I like having the UniFi switches. And a managed switch, I'll give you an example here. My cabinet switch has a number of devices in it, and some of them are on the trusted network and some of them are on the untrusted network. So the cool thing about that is that every one of the ports can be configured. So you can see port 1 is where the feed comes in from the UDR. Port 2 is where the NAS is plugged into, and that is on my trusted network. And the printer is on the trusted network so that I can print to it from my other devices. And you can see this device here is my voice over IP. That's on the untrusted network. Now, not only does it give me this insight, but it gives me that level of control that I can have mixed different VLANs right within that switch. And I can manage it all right here within the UniFi application. So that's the real advantage. And I got to tell you, these little flex switches are cheap. They're $29. So it really was not, and they do work with power over Ethernet. So you don't even need to plug them in if you don't want to. So I have one in my desk switch here. This one, I think most of them are trusted. Actually, no. In this situation, you can see I have it powered by the UDR, and I don't have anything plugged into port 2. Port 3 is my work laptop, then I have my home SEER hub, and then I have my iMac. Now, of course, the iMac and home SEER, those are untrusted. The work laptop, though, for example, I put on the guest network. So it's a hardwired connection, but it's on the guest network. So that way, it doesn't have any access to anything else in my home. I can't even print from it, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't need anything other than an internet connection. So that's a perfect example why you would use a flex switch. And these things are just so great, and they're $29, so I highly recommend them. Now the laundry switch, that one is a little bit, it's got 8 ports, obviously. 4 of them are power over Ethernet. And you can see I have my 2 access points being fed from ports 1 and 2, and then ports 3 and 4 are not being used right now. But I also have my Insteon hub plugged in here. That's on the untrusted profile. And I have my Loft, which is also on the untrusted because, my TiVo DVR is plugged into there. So I put that on the untrusted side. And I also have the UDR in. So, but I have wiring going to all the bedrooms in the house. So if I wanted to expand, for this, I could, potentially put in a smaller switch, but I needed that power over Ethernet. I needed the PoE. So that's really why I went with an 8-port powered switch there. So if I go into my device list here and I click on my Insteon hub and I go into settings, you'll be able to see that this is the IP address, and I've checked this box here that says use fixed IP address. It knows the device by its MAC address, and it will always give this address to that device, and that's how I can, keep it fixed. And I do that also with my NAS. So here's the Synology NAS. It is in my trusted network, and that is the IP address that I've also said use a fixed IP address. So same thing. That's how the magic happens there. So I'm back in my Wi-Fi settings here, and I wanted to first go into my Europa, which is the trusted network. And what I have here is, by default, that network will be broadcasted from all of your access points. And you can see that one says view, not edit. See these? That says edit, because those are ones I created. View is the one that is there by default, and I can't make any changes to any of these things. So basically, every access point is in this all APs group. And that way, I'm with my phone, I can travel throughout the house, and wherever it gets the strongest signal, it will always connect to any of my access points on Europa. Now, Europa IoT is the one that just broadcasts from the office. Now, I created an office access point, and in here, I just have the UDR checked. Okay, so this one, the Europa IoT, will only broadcast from the UDR, which is in my office. Now let's go and take a look at the one with the G on it, is the garage access point. So when I look at that, you can see I only have the garage access point checked. And what that does is it means any of those devices that I want to connect to that garage access point, I can specifically say connect to that Wi-Fi, connect to the one that ends with the G, Europa IoT G. And the same thing is true in my great room. I have that one as Europa IoT F, and that one has a great room access point. And you can select multiples here if you want to, but my purpose was I wanted things to go to specific access points. I wanted that level of control for devices that are installed in my house permanently, like cameras. Their location is not going to change. They're not going to roam around the house, so I wanted them to only go to a specific access point. There's no reason for them to try and get their signal elsewhere. Now, why would they do that? Well, sometimes it has to do with when you reboot your network, whichever device comes up first is the one that it would attach to, and that might not provide the best signal for it. And they may not actually be smart enough to change to another access point. So that's why I did it this way. Now, I'm not a network professional, and this was not intended to be a tutorial on the Dream Router or everything you can do with it. I will put links down in the video description, some of the videos that I found very useful in getting it configured and set up. But if you saw anything in here that you think I can do better, please leave me a comment, let me know, and I'll definitely make improvements over time. So thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you in the next one.